Welcome to Season 2 of Public Health on Call, a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm Joshua Sharfstein, Vice Dean for Public Health Practice and Community Engagement, and a former Secretary of Maryland's Health Department. Our goal is to bring scientific evidence and experience to the public health news of the day through informative interviews with scientists, community leaders, policy experts, public health officials, clinicians, and more. If you have ideas or questions for us to cover, please email us at publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes. Today, Stephanie Desmond talks to Georgia Lewis, a pediatric nurse practitioner who's enrolled in the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine trial. They discuss why she decided to take part in the research, how she felt after receiving her 2 doses, and why trust is so important for vaccination. Let's listen.
Georgia Lewis, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Georgia, you are a nurse practitioner, and more importantly for today is you were a volunteer for the Pfizer COVID vaccine trial.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if you could tell me about that experience and how you became involved and what it was like.
So I got an email I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner, and so I get emails from other pediatric clinics in the area, and they were sending out like these weekly COVID updates. And at the bottom of one was, hey, we're going to be offering the opportunity, if you're interested, to sign up for one of the COVID vaccine trials. And I thought it would be a really unique opportunity and an important opportunity that we definitely need people to do. So I signed up thinking, I'm sure a million people are signing up. I'll never get the opportunity, but what the heck? So I put in my name and they called me back and said I was eligible.
Terrific. So when did you get your first shot?
I got my first shot in early August, and they were 3 or 4 weeks apart. So August and then September.
And you have no idea if you have gotten the vaccine or the placebo. Is that right?
Correct. It's a double-blind study. So the research assistant that I'm working with doesn't know, nor do I, although there is a nurse that comes in who physically administers the vaccine, and he knows. I tried to get it out of him.
He wasn't getting it, huh?
No. I'm like, come on.
So tell me a little bit about why you decided to participate.
A couple reasons. I think it is important that this trial goes as quickly as possible, which means we need a lot of volunteers. We don't have the time during a global pandemic to wait around for years and years. I think it's also an opportunity to potentially get a vaccine before the public. I'm in healthcare. I have an innate trust in vaccines. So I think it took a lot of the fear away. I knew deep down that this was likely going to be fairly safe for me. And yeah, I knew it was going to be a safe option for me. I don't have comorbidities. And I've done a vaccine trial before that went well. And I think probably most importantly for me is, as a clinician, I know that I spend many visits convincing parents about the safety of vaccines. And I see myself trying to convince my patients and families in the future to take this vaccine. And I have to trust it to recommend it. And I thought it would be a great way to instill trust in a vaccine if I can show families that I trusted it so much that I even did it during the trial.
And you said you'd done another vaccine trial before. Tell me about that.
I did. It was in early high school. I did the HPV vaccine. And I was really excited because I got a couple $100. And I think that was a 3-dose series. And yes, and that went really well. You know, I had an achy arm, but I got a couple $100, which in early high school felt like $1 million. And so I think because I had a good experience with that, I felt safe volunteering to do this one.
Did you get the placebo or the vaccine that time?
They vaccinated me again. I did end up getting the actual one, but then when the HPV 9 came out, I got revaccinated with the updated vaccine with all the strains.
Gotcha. So what do you think? Do you think you got the vaccine or the placebo?
So the first vaccine, the first one I got in August, I was like, no way. This is definitely normal saline. Like, my arm's a little achy, but of course it's going to be achy. There's normal saline in my arm and there's a needle. And so last month when I went back for the second dose, I was telling the research assistant, I was like, I think I got the placebo. She's like, I don't know. People have been having side effects with the second dose, not the first dose. And then the next day I woke up with a headache and my arm was sore and I was tired all day. And of course it could be in my head, but I was like, now I think I got the real thing.
Yeah. So you felt a little ill the next day, but otherwise you're fine.
Like a typical vaccine reaction. Like my body could be mounting an immune response. Vaccine reactions aren't inherently bad or dangerous. It's your body reacting to something. And I try to tell parents that, these life-threatening reactions are really rare. And what's really common is to feel a little achy or feel a little tired. And that's actually look at that as a good thing. Your body's building up that immune response. So the next time they see that bug, they're ready.
Are your patients asking you about the COVID vaccine now?
They have. It's interesting. Some patients are asking me, when do you think it's going to be available? Do you think it's going to be safe? And then I have other patients that are still refusing the flu vaccines for this year. So it's a real medley.
Yeah. So talk to me also a little bit about how you talk to patients about the flu shot, because you and I chatted a little before about the flu shot. I know that there's a lot of messaging this year that it's more important than ever to have your flu shot. Are you having conversations like that with your patients?
Yeah, I think there's two concerns with the flu shot that I hear. One is that, I don't need it. And one is it makes me sick every time I get the shot. So when someone says, every time I get the flu shot, I get the flu, I talk a little bit about, what feeling sick after getting a vaccine is versus having the influenza virus. And acknowledging that, you can feel a little down after a vaccine. I don't think it's helpful to be dismissive and say, well, that's impossible. It's a dead virus. It's not helpful. It's just going to build a barrier between you and your patient. And the other thing I talk about is that it's not just for you or your kid. We need herd immunity, and we need herd immunity at a population level and within families. People have babies that are under 6 months who can't be vaccinated, or other family members with a variety of illnesses that can't be vaccinated. You have to have a mindset of, I'm getting vaccinated for more than just me. And I think that's hard to comprehend.
I want to go back to the COVID vaccine. First of all, there are lots and lots of candidates that people are testing, that they're volunteers like you for many of the other vaccine candidates.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm wondering if you've been following all of the controversy about rushing a vaccine to market too quickly and how you feel about it.
I think I understand why a lot of people were concerned when the AstraZeneca vaccine was taken out of rotation and within the trials. But instead of seeing it as a dangerous thing, I sort of saw it as a good thing. This is why we do trials, so that we can catch things like this before vaccines are open to the public. And this is why people like me volunteer, because we're willing to be guinea pigs, So to me, I saw that as a good thing, not a bad thing.
Let me interrupt here. I want to tell our listeners, if they're not familiar, there was a patient who had received the vaccine in that trial you referenced, and they had to halt the trial because someone got an autoimmune disorder. So I wanted to tell our listeners that. But you were talking.
Yeah. So someone had a poor reaction, and a lot of people in the public got very concerned, that these vaccines could potentially be dangerous. And again, this is why we do these trials. So right now, my Pfizer trial is slated to go a couple years, but they're hoping that it's going to be expedited and will hopefully end this fall or winter. And people get concerned, well, it's moving too fast. But a lot of the hoops that we're jumping through are some bureaucratic hoops. It's not necessarily safety or efficacy hoops. I mean, there's also an ethical issue if we see that something is working and, building immunity and preventing disease in a population, it's not necessarily ethical to withhold it. So it's balancing it. And, I think if this, let's say this Pfizer keeps going smoothly, if it goes out in the market, we might not know long-term immunity, like how long the immunity lasts or how well it holds up. But I think it's less likely that you're going to have vaccine reactions 2 years down the line.
So when would you find out whether you got the placebo or you got the actual vaccine?
So there's a couple of ways that I could find out. One is if my health is ever compromised, I could be And if a provider needed to know, they would definitely reveal whether I received the placebo or actual vaccine. Another one is if I just choose to leave the trial, I get the right to know. So I always have that option. Otherwise, whenever the trial is slated to know, I will find out. So as of right now, I won't find out for a few years, but hopefully it ends early so that I find out. And a nice perk, if you do the trial and if the trial goes smoothly, and if you are someone who is willing, wanting to continue to be vaccinated, if you ended up with a placebo, they will go ahead and give you the vaccine in the end.
So you might not know for a couple of years whether you've been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. How will you know whether to go out and get vaccinated once maybe a different vaccine is approved?
That's a good question. And I think it might depend. I think the research assistant might guide us a little more once there's one available on the market. But there's very rarely issues with getting an extra vaccine. We have tons of kids that we see in clinic where we're not sure if they've had one vaccine or another, and instead of drawing titers, we just give them a combination vaccine. So it wouldn't necessarily be dangerous to get another brand or a repeat of this vaccine down the line. I had to wait 2 or 3 weeks between the second dose and a flu shot, and 4 weeks between my second dose and any other vaccine. But otherwise, there's no known contraindications.
Does it make you feel any safer knowing you may have had a vaccine, or are you being just as vigilant as you would have been?
It definitely hasn't changed my behavior. Even if I knew that I had received the vaccine, it doesn't make you invincible. That would be great if that was the case, but it's not. I guess maybe it reduces a little bit of anxiety in the clinic, but no, I think overall it hasn't changed my behaviors.
What would you say to other people who are thinking about volunteering for research like this?
I think it's a good opportunity, but you need to feel comfortable with the process. And because I'm in healthcare, because I trust vaccines, because I've done this before with the HPV vaccine, because I trust Pfizer, because this isn't a phase 1 trial, it's a phase 3 for me and the Pfizer. It was an easier decision for me to make, but I don't think that that's how it should be necessarily for everybody else. I also am lucky and don't have, many allergies or comorbidities that might change my willingness either.
Georgia Lewis, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Public Health on Call is produced by Joshua Sharfstein, Lindsay Smith-Rogers, Stephanie Desmond, and Lamari Morales. Audio production by Spencer Greer, Niall Owen McCusker, Cian Oates, and Matthew Martin, with support from Chip Hickey. Distribution by Nick Moran. Thank you for listening.